Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back. Another week of Zesty's Best Bets. We're red hot last week. Zesty 6-2. Anonymous Betting Public 9-4. So this is why you're tuning in, ladies and gentlemen. Keep making that money. Welcome. There's 2 games this week. It is conference championship week in the NFL. And we're going to get right into Chiefs-Ravens, the first game up. Ravens are -3.5 right now. Over under 44.5. Zesty, tell me why you like the Chiefs.
So this is kind of a multiple level bet. I don't think 4 is coming back. That's why I grabbed 4. But I also have the conference themselves winning the Super Bowl. My best bet is the Ravens at 2-1 to actually win the Super Bowl. So in theory, I can win all 3 with a little bit of wiggle room with a good number at 4. I like the under as well, which is a tale of 2 different teams here. Off memory, the Chiefs played the 3rd highest percentage of unders and the number 1 highest percentage of unders in the second half. They have flipped the switch a little bit, but they also played Buffalo, who was a mash unit. We kind of talked about it last week. They were, if 85 was average, I think they were like 79 as far as injury rate. So they were missing quite a bit of their guys. Kelsey got loose. They didn't overly impress me. And then this Baltimore defense is a pressure rate team, which statistically, Mahomes is going to have good statistics just about against any coverage scheme. But getting people up in your face, it does make it tough. And then when I don't believe their receivers or tight end are going to be able to separate, he's going to have to hold on to the ball. Ultimately, I will have money on the in-play. But as of kick, that's how I kind of stand. I do think the under has value, but the Ravens do play a higher percentage of overs. And
the amount of in-play betting that we do, I feel like eventually we got to go live during some of these games.
Yeah, and obviously the in-play, if it gets to a 2.5, I'll actually buy the Ravens at 2.5 as well. And then flirt with the line in play as I see fit. Same thing if it gets it open to like 46.5, I don't see it coming back to that. If it drops near 42-ish, I'd maybe play with that. But the lines are a little sharp. Obviously, there's only 2 games, 3 total to end the year. So we kind of know what's going to happen. It's just a matter of adjustments or who comes to play. And I don't know. I think the Ravens are far more complete and cause more problems than Kansas City can. However, they do have Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and what could be his farewell tour. So you never know. Not that they need any additional motivation. What say you, public?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to go against the Chiefs, especially after what we saw last weekend. Against that depleted Bills defense, they were able to do the things that they wanted to do. Isaiah Pacheco running wild, which is a great element for the Kansas City offense to have with a depleted receiver core and Patrick Mahomes at the helm. Because if you can't run your nickel most of the time against the Chiefs, you're going to feel fucked anyway. So I thought that was interesting last week. What happened? We don't have to dwell on it too much, but the thing that gives me pause here, I like the Chiefs where you have them at +4. If I can get Baltimore at 3 or 2.5, maybe without too much vig, I do like that number. As you said, I think they're the much more complete team. I think Baltimore matches up better with Kansas City than the Bills do, especially at the health that the Bills were at. And to me, there's very little reason other than Patrick Mahomes that the Ravens should even have to worry throughout this game because they've been that much better throughout the year, both defensively and offensively. But it's fucking Patrick Mahomes. So he is 13-3 in his playoff career. One of those was the Super Bowl against Tampa, where they had every backup offensive lineman that they could find. This death actually almost got the call, but somebody else showed up, so they didn't pull you off the street in that game. But and the other two losses went to overtime. So Mahomes just seems to keep his team in the game or win playoff games, and that means it's really hard to lay more than 3 with them. So if you can find it at 2.5, great. I do like the total under 44.5. I think that the Ravens are going to try and run the ball, keep it out of his hands. And the Chiefs, as we know now, have to run the ball as well. So their tendency throughout the year has been to get slow in the second half and not execute very well. They had a good half against Buffalo last week, but I don't see that repeating itself. So like the under.
Yeah, just to piggyback on that, I didn't mention so their guard, who probably is not their best offensive lineman, but he is a good interior lineman.
Dooney, right?
Yeah, he's likely out. And then Kansas City's not known as a juggernaut anyway, and the Ravens play the run quite well. And then Kansas City, there's a certain announcer, analyst on Fox, Mr. Nick Wright, who is comical but damn near insufferable. But he believes this is the greatest defense in the world. I don't believe that because I do think they're good for Kansas City. And they haven't seen defense in a long time, and their offense is playing complementary. I just don't. They don't have. They have a dude. They have 2 dudes. They've got a good corner, and then Jones. But if you're able to spread the line of scrimmage horizontally and vertically, it does stress a defense. This year, anything over 21, they struggle. I know playoffs are a different animal, and they just proved it against Buffalo. But Buffalo left a lot of meat on the bone, and they've played each other quite well. They kind of match up stylistically. The Ravens and Chiefs are almost, I don't want to say complete opposite, but the Ravens pose issues vertically that Buffalo did not. Obviously, they're going to run the ball. Lamar is a part of the running game. The question that everybody keeps asking is Lamar the guy? And that's going to be the deciding factor of the game.
Yeah, that's what it all comes down to, obviously. I'm on the Chiefs. I don't think, and I it's hard to come out of that statement and say that because I do think Lamar is the guy, but not this fucking weekend.
He's the guy, but Mahomes is fucking, as Bomani says, Jordan. He's Jordan. So to me,
and I know there's so many reasons why, the Chiefs should and They should absolutely struggle against the fucking Ravens defense that's been great all year. But
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Hamilton should be able to control Kelsey over the middle. They should be able to get pass rush. They should be able to run the ball. But
Yeah.
fuck.
But am I gonna go throw a bunch of money on the Ravens? Fuck no.
Yeah. Don't get your arrows ready for your arrows or your ammunition of choice pointed at me, but Chiefs are backwards from Jordan. He might be Jordan. This Ravens team is the Pistons, and he doesn't have Pippen in. So, like I said, don't blind yourself.
Yeah.
However, the biggest key is, can Lamar make the easy plays? His spectacular plays are going to come, but can he make the consistent easy plays, or is he going to press like he did a little bit early against Houston?
Allegedly, he's wasn't getting any favors from the offensive coordinator there. I didn't personally go back and watch the All-22, but I heard some commentary that indicated they had some deep-ass routes being run while Houston was bringing 6 guys, and they didn't adjust very well to that in the first half. Second half, they came out gangbangers, but gangbusters. Sorry.
Yeah.
Didn't mean gangbangers.
Gangbangers and ammunition here. We're just a family-owned cast here, but does he not have the freedom? That's where I am concerned. Otherwise, I'd be a little more excited. Does he have the freedom to audible? Does he have the cognitive ability to audible? I'm not saying he doesn't.
Damn.
I'm just saying, if that's the issue and he needs a play call, there's a bigger underlying issue. But like I said, everything they want to do is structured in the NFL. So we're not all freelancers.
And we all have ignored the elephant in the room, which is the referee, who calls about 50% less penalties on the road team than he does on the home team in a number of categories in a fairly decent sample size. Like, this is not just some chicken shit, over 3 games that happened. We're talking about since 2016.
This is bringing in Mariano
big
Rivera
road-
off the fucking bench. Like,
Big road dog. Yeah. Like, he has a problem with home teams. He loves that hometown crowd getting in his crew's ass, apparently. And he is going to hear it from the Baltimore crowd, probably give him some bullshit offensive holding or bullshit defensive holding when they're out there and Mahomes is trying to get a drive together.
Yeah.
It'll fucking happen.
So the percentage doesn't sound great, but it's about a 13% swing for the home or the road team. And then adding the Chiefs specifically, it gets it's either 42 and then 37 with the Chiefs, or it's 37 and a little worse. But there's clearly statistics, albeit maybe coincidental, which I don't necessarily believe. I think they'll be on their best behavior, but yeah, there's probably going to be, which, like I said, that's why I like 4 and minus 2.5. I think this is going to be a possession field goal. Got the greatest quarterback in the game versus the greatest kicker in the world. Kansas City's kicker's not bad either, but ultimately I think this game does come down to a field goal. Referees are not, but they likely will play an unfortunate part in the first half. The second half, maybe, potentially, but I think the fact that people are aware of this, it's going to be more heightened. But, I mean, it doesn't matter. Every game's fixed. Every referee has an agenda. Like, But these guys, it's crazy that they got an NFL game to begin with, or not an NFL game, but a playoff game. We saw the other referee crew get punished and not get the crew, or not the crew, but the game. And they were a better rated crew, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to go back, but because they blatantly botched multiple calls, they're like, you're not getting a playoff game. So
Yeah.
It's part of a cap, but I wouldn't go running in there thinking you're playing 13 versus 11 right off the rip, because, well, offensive holding on a big run, it's very possible. I mean, they can definitely
That's all I'm
affect
saying.
they can definitely affect the game. I choose to bat
Just
an eye.
take one flag.
Yeah.
And the NFL is just playing the numbers there. You know, it's just like this guy's going to do what he always does. There's going to be a flag on the field. Something's going to happen.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. Like, I'm not trying to say that the refs are in the bag or anything like that. I just think that certain crews have certain tendencies. This is a clear tendency. And whether or not Roger Goodell knew that when he made the selection for the refs, or whoever the hell they make this selection, I don't think really matters. If they knew, then, great. But I think, to your point, now that they know, everybody else knows, because everybody's been throwing out referee stats this year, you have to be first phone call of the morning had to be to the referee head. And just so you know, everybody fucking thinks you're cheating for the Chiefs. So keep that shit in mind as you go through the game.
Yeah, I'd have to overlook our audio, but I think week 14 roughly. I forget the referee. It's I think Hans something. It's a longer name, but his crew, and I forget the game, was very defensive pass interference. Instead of holding or whatever, they were calling PI, which is a much larger penalty over the grand scheme because it's yardage. It's a spot foul. And obviously it was a regular season game.
Seems little until you're in the conference championship.
Yeah, and I bet enough of those with the referees. I can't remember if it played true to form, but the referee trends are at least something to look at and then just kind of look at. I wouldn't assign them a point or anything of that nature as far as the total or the side, which does play into the under. So long-winded, I've kind of covered just about everything as far as the conference themselves winning the Super Bowl, the Ravens winning outright plus money for the Super Bowl, the Chiefs actually catching a good 4 points. And then if I do believe the referees play a factor, it does play to the under. Like we just said, big plays might be taken back, or now we're in 2nd and 15, 3rd and 8, kind of stalls out to play to the under. So
there you have it, listeners.
Couple props to look for, because I do think that what I've heard is that the Chiefs are going to have to play man defense because they're going to have to blitz Lamar. That's what everybody says. You got to blitz Lamar. So I might be sniffing out that Lamar rushing total prop, and I might be sniffing out Lamar's rushing attempts.
Yeah, the problem with that is you played man against Lamar, one guy who's a spy, assuming you spy him, because you cannot play man without spying him, misses. So I'm by no means a coach. I've messed around with football enough. I actually listened to J.J. Watt talk about how they used to play him. And Pittsburgh actually does a really good job of this. Obviously, they play him twice a year. You have to muddle blitz. And to that is you don't want to create a V at any point that he can escape, but you don't want to rush too far up to where you can step in, obviously creating that V2, and you just want to push the pocket and kind of collapse him to get him to bootleg, and then that's when you can have your horizontal attack or have your spy essentially cut the field in either thirds or half and limit that. Man is, I don't know, I'm not a defense coordinator. Man is not the greatest. It's going to have to be a little hybrid because, as we mentioned, they have the horizontal that they haven't in years past. And then also, there's a big, I know we're getting long-winded into this. Somebody in the chat's going to let us know. They got to stop the run first. Otherwise, this is all moot point. So they are going to have to commit linebackers in the box. Otherwise, they're going to get gassed. And that might be their best plan of attack, but it fits right into Baltimore because they have proven that they can run in a heavy front. So it'll be interesting. Like I said, I don't want to be the guy be like, oh, I'm going to do a lot of in-play, but I do have some money allotted for in-play numbers if they become available.
I think 4 is a great number, though. I think it, like you said, it should be decided by a field goal if everything goes to script. These are two pretty even teams. Completely different teams, but we'll see. Should be good. Betting public, any thoughts before we move on to the Lions Niners? Let's do it, Zesty. Lions Niners later on that Sunday. They got the late start on the West Coast. And the Niners -7, numbers 50.5. I see you got the Niners over 29.5.
Yeah, so just to squash, probably a lot of the public and talking heads that you'll hear. The Niners are not dead without Debo. Whether he plays or not, they're not dead. Obviously, they are more effective, but it's the sample size is weird because it was Minnesota, Cleveland, and whoever was the other one. They just didn't score at all. Cincinnati. Yeah, Cincinnati's defense made them look weird. Last week, weather played a part, and it did kind of expose Purdy to an extent. But he made the play he needed to make. Like, nobody's saying he's Joe Montana, and everybody wants to beat on him, but
You're saying Debo's absence has made them look even worse than it'll make them look this weekend. Like they're gonna figure it out even better. If he doesn't play, is he going to play? I've heard he might play.
yeah, it's not as bad as the original injury that he missed 3 weeks. All I'm saying is they're going to know one way or the other and scheme for it. This was in-game with weather. Quarterback clearly struggled with it, but when he needed to make a play, he made – I don't want to overstate several, but he made the plays he needed to make. He made a couple good throws. Green Bay's defense, even though they moved on from their defensive coordinator, actually put it together the last 5 weeks, and they were not the tire fire they once were. The name of the game is the Niners have such a scripted success that when it's off script and it looks weird, it's because the entire team themselves are fundamentally scripted, whether it's return motions, orbit motions, back forth, chip blocks. When the script changes, it changes their offense, obviously. They're still going to have good pass protection. Trent Williams is still a GOAT. Detroit is, off the top of my head, the number one versus the run. At least one or two. Tampa's up there, and then Baltimore's up there too. But I believe Detroit is number one. They put a whole hell of a lot of. That looks like a good ice cream sandwich there. You're just enjoying yourself.
You want to let the listening audience in on this?
Some
We've
drumsticks.
got ice cream.
They played the run really well. Obviously, they made it a point to stop it, which isn't detrimental to the Niners because short passing, quick passing is part of the running game. McCaffrey plays well. There was a play, I think it was McCaffrey's first touchdown, where you hear Purdy say stop when they were trying to do a return in orbit motion, and they just stopped the tight end and actually ran the play. Had they had motion, they either would have had to take a timeout or they would have had to delay a game. So Purdy is definitely cognitive. He's the 5th all-time quarterback passer rating, albeit, small sample size. He knows where to get the ball. I don't want to take too much into the weather conditions, a wet ball. Not everybody's Tom Brady and can throw an ice ball. On the other side, you got Jared Goff, who has similar issues historically. So now Jordan Love does play in the tundra. I think last week was more Green Bay overachieving with the Niners coming off the bye than the Niners actually being exposed. I know that doesn't make a lot of people happy, and I've faded Detroit for 3 weeks now for similar but different reasons. I thought Tampa Bay's defense was going to give them problems. To Detroit's benefit, they came out, went gangbusters. 7 is a little steep for me. I do think it's fluffed. The Niners are damn near. The Niners are essentially the Cardinals on return rate for ATS. Less than a quarter of a unit. In fact, if I could do the math real quick, which I can't, so I won't, it's not even close to a quarter of a unit. So the way they cap the Niners over against the total or against the line is damn near nuts. Like, there's not a whole lot of value with the Niners. Detroit plays a lot of over games. They play great against the spread. Has nothing to do with this game. Don't buy into it because more than likely they were undervalued and then they overachieved and they just happen to have a good against the number. They play extremely high on the over because they don't play pass defense, and they themselves have to score. So I didn't see a lot of value in this game. Obviously, I'll have more action, more than likely, either later in the week. But without looking at player props, because I didn't do that, the fact that Christian McCaffrey's already minus 150 for a Super Bowl touchdown, and the team total for the Niners are 29.5, and the team total for Detroit is 20.5. So you're essentially, 2 points that are just disappeared and they're heavily vigged. So I unfortunately, I think this is Detroit's send-off game, but I
The
can't
final
lay,
ride.
Yeah, I can't lay 7. I didn't look too heavy in the first half. It's possible I'd flirt with that, but both of them run out really scripted, and allegedly Jones is going to be the Commanders' head coach. So, he's probably a little depressed, although he's cashing money. But but what do you say, public, after that
Public,
20-minute rant?
you got any props or any crazy stuff like that for us?
Luckily for your friend who is going to find his way to the Commander's staff, Chainsaw Dan is no longer there. So he at least gets a fresh start in that sense. Beyond that, we talked a lot about Jared Goff last week, so I won't belabor the point. But it is going to be sunny and beautiful in Santa Clara this weekend, where he played a lot of college football. And he has been pretty fucking phenomenal of late. And Goff has shown that he can make a run like this and get a team to a Super Bowl. He did it with the Rams. Granted, he may have not have been asked to do too much, but it was a similar type of structure of a team with a strong running game that helped him out in the passing game and had playmakers outside. So, I don't know how you lay 7 points with the Lions here against them. So, to me, I'll take the Lions plus 7. I might flirt with the Lions in the first half if I can get it around 4, 5.5. I do think that the under 50 is the way to go because both teams, I believe, will try and run the ball. Detroit, I think, is going to put a lot of pressure on San Francisco on the edge with Jahmyr Gibbs, just like the Packers did last week with A.J. Dillon. And they're going to find success there. If you see something once in the NFL and you don't stop it, probably going to see it a bunch more times until you do, because they all watch tape. They got whole teams of people to watch tape. So, to me, Lions do a lot of things that are going to give San Francisco trouble. Went back and looked at the Debo absences, as you mentioned. The key being here, to me, Trent Williams still around. So, Purdy won't feel as pressured, I don't think. But Hutchinson and the crew have been doing a great job. But again, if the Lions can find a way to get out ahead of the 49ers and then you make Purdy into a comeback quarterback with potentially beat up McCaffrey and no Debo, that could get dicey for San Francisco. And they may find their way in there, but I don't think it's going to be by 7 points. So give me the Lions all day.
Yeah, one line I flirted with and still might continue to flirt with is, I don't know what it is. Either the third quarter is the highest scoring total quarter, or the Niners to cover the third quarter coming out of half. I don't disagree. A lot of my bets for the first game are hypothetically, let's say the Lions do win, which I do think is possible. Now you have incredible numbers versus two teams that are going to be heavily favored, and then you actually have the opportunity to buy back on Detroit if they do win, and then you can even play around. I personally am not doing this yet, probably won't, but if somehow the Lions do win, or let me rephrase that. If it gets to a point that the Lions play to script that they can win, then you have your in-play value. But as you mentioned, 7 to me is probably right where it lands. Like I said, the Niners literally play script as far as Vegas runs it as they play. Their first half of, I think it's the last 5 weeks, their defense actually isn't great. I think they're giving up 12 points, so there is potential value for the Lions to go over their team total in the first half. Not sure what that is, but if it's under 10, I would snag it up potentially. First quarter, I would probably play the under of the first quarter. I think both of these teams are going to flirt it, play with each other. Don't know the number. I would imagine it's 3.5 or first quarter would be
9.5.
Yeah, I was just going to say at 50, it's going to be relatively high. I think that has some value. I like
10. It's 10 offshore.
Yeah. I made a play. I don't like a lot of this game, to be honest with you. I think it's too close, but I do think the Niners can put up 30. Hate the number 29.5. But I do think against this Detroit D and Detroit, and now I'm kind of talking myself into the third quarter, Detroit in the second half, the last 2 weeks, the Rams and the Bucks, wasn't a shot at them. I just felt higher on those guys in those situations. They've kind of sputtered. Like they come out really well, and then for whatever reason, they change what's working or they try to overthink themselves. The Niners' key to success are two of Detroit's strengths. They play the run really well, and they protect Goff. Like this Detroit offensive line is badass. That's why I really like Detroit. I don't think, as good as the front four is on paper, I don't think they're going to be able to disrupt. Especially, I'll be interested to see if Bosa jumps to the left side because my boy Penny is a beast, and I don't think he has the value that Bosa typically does against other right tackles. And then we mentioned it without beating a dead horse. They do script their run game really well. It's just going to be, can Goff not throw a two-handed chest pass towards his end zone? I know we talked about it last week. It's just
Goff has to have those drives that he had the first drive out against the Rams. Very, very scripted, but aggressive and looking like a world beater, not a fucking chest pass, like you said.
Oh, I can promise you they have no fear. They're going to come out. They don't mind getting blown out, and that's to their benefit. Like, I might hope for 7.5. I doubt it comes to that, but there's zero chance I can lay 7 with the Niners. I'm not saying they don't cover. It's just, like I said, their year to date is just so razor thin that there's not the value to say, like, for context, I would actually, and obviously this is a made-up line, and I don't even know if the math makes sense, but I would actually back the Ravens -5 more than I would the Niners -7 against the Lions. And obviously people would be like, oh, that's crazy, because, yeah, it'd be a terrible line, and then you'd have better numbers, and Cody, you just back 4. But what I'm saying is the Niners, there's just not a whole hell of a lot of value. Maybe it will change as the week progresses, but I don't really have that high of hope. So I think everybody's it's going to be a pros versus Joes. Everybody wants the Lions to win. There's probably going to be heavy Lions money line. If you've got enough, you might have value in a money line, paying heavy vig as far as a small return on your profit on something that's beneficial. I wouldn't suggest that because, again, long-winded. I do think it is very possible that the Lions can win. That's why most of this game I really dislike. The over, yeah, maybe the over, but I'm focusing on the Niners specifically. So
It has been said.
There we have it.
Public, Seth, any other betting you'd like to get into before we move on to releasing our audience from us?
now we're getting sad.
Yeah.
The NFL is coming to a close.
There's college basketball. There's NHL.
I've been reading up on this college basketball you speak of.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've flirted with it. I'm, we'll call it $12 over the last 2 days. So I'm enjoying college basketball, but I'm still sad to see our promised land dwindling.
It is true. And with that note, we dwindle away. Goodbye. Another week. Zesty's Best Bets. Good luck, everyone.
Go Ravens.